Welcome to the AT Center at TCNJ. This webinar series is titled Unleash Your Technology and is presented by Mike Murata. This module is focused on built-in accessibility features in Android devices. Mike Murata is a RESNA certified assistive technology professional and inclusive technology evangelist who has been providing direct services to individuals with all types of disabilities for almost 30 years. Mike is the 2017 ITSD Inclusive Learning Network Outstanding Educator. Mike is a nationally and internationally recognized presenter who was previously a trainer for the California State University at Northridge, providing practical and in depth training to professionals interested in specializing in assistive technology. Mike runs his own consulting company, Inclusive Technology Solutions LLC, where he provides services related to providing inclusive technology solutions for all learners. Mike is the director of the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center at Disability Rights New Jersey and serves on the CAST Accessible Educational Materials and Center on Inclusive Technology and Educational Systems advisory boards. Mike is also the founder of Ed Camp Access New Jersey and co moderator of the weekly AT Chat on Twitter. Let's listen to Mike.
Hello there. Welcome back, or welcome to your first one of this series of unleashing your technology, using the things that are built into your tools. This webinar is going to focus on Android tools. Not something all of us potentially use, but I think there's a lot of value here in looking at the possibility of dropping some of these Android tools into your environment to support you and the people you're working with. That's me. Hello. My name is Mike Murata. I am a assistive technology specialist, or if it's on a day where I'm printing my own business cards, an inclusive technology evangelist. I have several jobs in our field of technology here. I am an assistive technology specialist. I am also the director of the New Jersey Assistive Technology Act program called the ATAC, Assistive Tech Advocacy Center. I'm an adjunct professor at Ramapo College of New Jersey and the author of these two tools, Inclusive Learning 365, which is a book, Everyday Tech Strategies for Every Day of the Year. And in the picture, you're seeing the newest entry into the Inclusive 365 universe, which is the card deck called Quick Wins, Tips to Activate Inclusive Learning. So a deck of cards with 10 reflective questions educators can ask about inclusive learning and inclusive technology, and then 40 strategies of how to use and embed technology throughout your experiences to facilitate inclusive learning. So definitely check those out if that's something that interests you. And I hope it does. So we're going to talk about Android tools today. I like to start these with a little nugget of information. This is where I'm giving you opportunities to take this little piece of information and use it at the next party you go to, because who doesn't love little tidbits of information? Here it is. Did you know your mobile device, your smartphone, your tablet is approximately 5,000 times more powerful than that Cray 2 supercomputer from the mid 1980s, which took up an entire room? Yes, your device is 5,000 times more powerful. The question that begs after I tell you something like that is, how are you using these tools? Are you using them effectively? Are you able to meet the unique needs of each person that's working with technology using the things you already have? That's the core of this short little series of 3 webinars, is this idea of maximizing the customization and usability of the tools you already have. Too often, people are looking to get something else. Show me the tool I need. Show me another app. Show me this. Show me that. Sometimes it's a step back from that, a pause, and saying, do I have the features I need already? can I do what I need to do? Whatever that is. Can I do that? The things that are already in my system before I go buy additional things. Can I use pre-installed apps, apps from the manufacturer? Um, and we'll see a couple of those today. We'll see some apps from the manufacturer that amplify and improve the customization of your Android devices, but you do have to download them. They don't come on your device automatically. However, they are Android apps directly from Google. So you'll see those. So that I'm going to give them, they're not pre-installed, but they're like pre-installed app adjacent because they are from the same company. And also the big thing is built-in accessibility features. Can you get what you need from your device simply by turning on features, adjusting them, customizing them so they perform the functions that you need? There are plenty of apps out there. This is not to say don't go to the App Store. Sure, go to the App Store, look around. But what this should be is your first step before you go out to buy additional things. Can I use the things I have to complete the tasks that I need to do? Or can I use the built-in features and the apps from the manufacturers to demonstrate effectiveness? You go to an administrator, so you're working in a school. You go to an administrator and you say, I need you to buy this app for this student because I think it's going to work. Well, I don't know that you'd say I think it's going to work. You might take the chance and say, because I need this app because it's going to provide this function for this student. Great. Until someone comes back and says, how do you know that? How do you know this app that I'm considering buying is going to work? Sometimes we can use the built-in features to demonstrate our hypothesis, a proof of concept. I think this is going to work. I turned it on. The student used it. They were successful until maybe this built-in feature didn't have the functionality they needed. Until this one moment where I said to myself, or I said out loud, this has been good, this tool, but I wish it did this. And then you describe something. That's the moment you go out to buy another app, when it has additional features you need. That way you can go to an administrator and say, look, I've been trying it. Here's the success we've had. Here's how it's changed the way this student navigates through these different activities, and they've been successful. However, we've also hit this barrier and we need additional things, and that's where the paid app comes in. And maybe you wouldn't need this whole kind of depth of conversation for a 99-cent app or a $2 app. But if we're talking about some of the more high price apps, and what we're seeing with some of our apps now that we pay for, our third-party assistive tech apps, some of them are moving away from the single purchase lifetime use to a subscription base. So this is going to be a recurring. So for that, I really have to demonstrate that this is going to provide the support that someone needs. I've talked about this in the other webinars. Why would I stop now? The SET framework. How do you match someone's needs and the tasks they need to complete to the tools that are out there? And so I would encourage you, think about that as you go forward. How do I document the consideration I've done for these tools so that I can demonstrate at the end, this is the right path because we've gathered information in these other steps. I've looked at the student and their needs and abilities, their likes and dislikes, and things they've tried in the past, things that have worked, things that haven't worked, whatever it might be. I've explored the environments they're going to be in. Maybe it's the classroom. Maybe it's the classroom at home. Maybe it's the classroom in the community, whatever it is. Where are they going to be using technology? What other supports are there for them? What are the tasks they need to do? That's obviously the stuff that has to happen, that they're using the tool to support. And then finally, here's some suggestions for tools. We look through this process using the SET framework as our model. When we get to the tools, we have a better chance of making that match because we've thoughtfully moved through this process to get to tools that will match those needs that we've discussed. So don't shortchange the system. It does work. This process works. And when we use it, it eliminates a lot of these moments of device abandonment or just flat out wrong devices put in front of students to use. As we go through this today, as you are exploring this and watching this webinar, and I'm going to show you some examples. I've put videos in this because I'm always afraid in a recording of trying to go out and sync my iPad to this or sync my devices to Zoom. I'm just going to put some videos in here. We can talk about them. I would encourage you throughout, pause and go explore. If you have an Android device there, pause the video and play, and then come back and hit play and watch some more. So you have those opportunities to either do it during or then wait and do it at the end. It might make more sense to do it as we're going through and just simply pause me and wait. It's the beauty of a recording. I will be here when you unpause me, and I will just keep talking. So that'll work as we go through. All right, so let's jump in. One other comment I'll give you before we jump in and start talking about things. If you're going to pause and you're going to explore, which great, I hope you do, turn on one feature at a time. Don't turn on all the features I show you at once. I don't know what that's going to do to your device. I've seen instances where it doesn't go well. So don't turn everything on. If you want to go explore, turn that feature on, play a little bit, turn it off, and then turn the next one on and play a little bit. So you get a sense of how these work so that when you do have to turn on multiple features, you'll understand what's happening in that instance from each of those features. You won't be like, well, I wonder where this was attached to. It's doing this now. Is that the first feature I turned on or the second one? If you go through them one at a time, you'll know where that feature set comes from. All right, one more hold before we jump in. These are kind of my little caveats before we start. So give me one more second to think about this. One of the things that causes a bit of a struggle with using Android devices is a little different from the other devices we use. So if you've watched the other two webinars that I've created in this series, or maybe you haven't gotten to them yet, I have an iOS webinar and a Chromebook webinar. Same idea, using the built-in. What's different about Android is not all of your Android devices are the same. In your iOS devices, as long as they're all updated to the same operating system, they work the same. For that matter, even if they're not updated to the brand new, they're pretty close to working the same. You may get a customized feature here or there that gets added, but you're going to get the same experience. Android is very different. It is very much reliant. Android is an open system, meaning that manufacturers can decide what functions to put in their devices. Samsung can choose things that maybe Google won't put in a Pixel device. Maybe those two different things are going to be different and you're not going to see them. Maybe you might get an inexpensive Android tablet, which to me is one of the bonuses of Android that people don't think about a lot, is that Android, because it's an open system that different manufacturers can use, you sometimes can get a very inexpensive device that runs the Android platform, which is great if you're looking for access to devices. So getting something for less money is excellent. However, some of those inexpensive devices may not have the capability to support the features we're talking about. And so as we go through, I gave you that QR code there. If you want to scan it with your phone and jump out, pause me so I don't keep talking and jump out. That will bring you to the web page for Google to see the different versions of accessibility features and what version of Android they work on. So I always tell people the first thing you should do is open up your settings, go to the software information, and see what version of Android your device runs. The picture on the screen there, that's my Samsung tablet. It runs Android version 9. So I know if there is an accessibility feature that runs on a higher level of Android, I might not get access to that, especially if my device is not able to be updated to some of these newer versions. Some of these inexpensive tablets don't update. They run the version they run, and that's what they run. So keep that in mind as you go through. That could impact us in schools, again, because these devices are inexpensive. So we might see in schools a school buying Android tablets to get more students access to tablets so that they can work on digital services. That's great until they might need some functionality that might not exist on that product. The same happens with Android phones, which is where we're seeing a lot of people access these features is through smartphones, Android phones. We think about a lot of these services you see on the screen. I have the Walmart page. These are some of the examples of those pay-as-you-go phones. And for some people, that's a really effective way to get access to these devices and to get access to the services. However, some of these phones that are part of those services run a different version of Android that will not have the accessibility features in there. So if you're working with someone, not only do you need to know what device they have that's an Android device, but what version of Android this device is running becomes critical. Most important, can it be updated so that the person does get those settings? So it's a little different from iOS and Chromebook, but really important to consider as you go. All right, with all of those out of the way, let's jump in a little bit. I'll show you a couple. We'll talk about a couple apps that you can download. As with any other device we're looking at getting to these services, go into your settings, go into accessibility, start to explore. That's just a screen capture of a smartphone that has Android accessibility features in it. Dig around a little. Click them, read what it says that they're going to give you. Remember, turn one on, explore. You might not have the depth. You might open up your Android device right now and say, I don't know what you're showing me. I don't have any of those things. That might be the case because the manufacturer of your phone or tablet has decided that they want to keep some of those features out to have the system run smoother, I guess. I don't know. Maybe to not put as much strain on the system. I don't know. But again, if we're thinking about it from an accessibility standpoint, that becomes critical. What do you have? What can you get in that device? So we'll start where I always start. I think the easiest way to show built-in features is to start with the read aloud aspect of things, the audio support to give people from their devices. So another example of between the devices, we need to understand what it is we're talking about. What I'm showing you right now is text to speech. There's digital text on the screen. I want to read it out loud. That's called text to speech. Now, the feature of that in Android is called select to speak. If you're looking at iOS, if you have an iPhone and you're like, well, I wonder what this is called in my iPhone, I'm going to look up select to speak. Don't bother. It's called speak selection in your Apple devices. Same function. Both of those functions are text to speech. They're just called something different. So read through, get a sense of what these features do. Here's the example of it running on the Android tablet. So I tap the icon, I tap on some text.
The first step in designing authentically inclusive educational experiences is believing that it can be done. Adopting
and it starts to talk. So it's reading through. You'll notice, as maybe you haven't noticed till I hit play again, on my tablet.
Mindset is a necessary prerequisite.
It's not highlighting. I'm getting the speech, but I'm not getting highlighting. So keep that in mind for some of your devices. You may or may not get a highlight. That has a pretty okay voice. I mean, it's not ideal. You can make some changes in the settings to find a better voice, but basically I have the ability to hit the text, have it read. I have a pause button that can come up. I can adjust the speed as it reads. So I have some functionality. That is my core ability to have text to speech in an Android device. As I always say to people, is that enough for you? Is that the feature you need? Is it doing what you need? Great. Well, then don't look for anything else. If it's not, what else do you need there? Use that list you start to generate as you start to look for third-party apps. As out of any of them, text-to-speech probably has the most apps out there. There's tons of apps out there, probably hundreds of different apps that do text-to-speech. But do they do the features that you need? That's the question. So keep that in mind as you think about, what do I really need this to do? What does my student need this to do? What do I want out of this functionality, of this feature set? So we have audio support. Select to speak, choose text on the screen, read it out loud. We have screen readers. This is called TalkBack. That is Android's version of a screen reader. When I compare this to the iPhone and the iPad, that is called VoiceOver. Both of them are screen readers. Screen reader is the type of function we're looking at here. The difference between a screen reader and text-to-speech, a screen reader reads everything out loud. So it's going to read all the items, sometimes called elements, all the elements on the screen. I'll let this video kind of gets
from our focus group of over 100 people with blindness and low vision. The first update we made was to gestures, how screen reader users interact with their smartphone screens. The community told us they wanted simpler gestures. For example, one of the most common actions is starting and stopping media. Previously, the way to do this required several steps. Now, we've made it much simpler, so all you need to do is use a 2-finger double tap gesture. You can use gestures to use your voice to complete common actions such as copy and paste.
Selected text. Copied.
Another change we made was to the menu system. So on Android 6 and above, we've created a unified menu that combines and amplifies the power of the previous menus into a single new menu that's sensitive to context and completely customizable. We started working with Samsung over a year ago to bring the best of TalkBack and Samsung Voice Assistant together.
And so what you hear in that is it gives you some example of it talking and some of the things that it does through the menus. One of the interesting things here that I always like to remind people, a screen reader's reading everything. Keep that in mind. It might be too much audio support for someone. The other thing, a screen reader typically designed for an individual with a visual impairment or who is blind. That doesn't mean those are the only individuals that would benefit from your device reading aloud all the elements. So keep that in mind. Don't get kind of blinders on to the idea that, well, I'm not working with a student with a visual impairment, so a screen reader might not work for me. I've seen many different types of needs, many different types of students use a screen reader effectively because it provides the level of support they need auditorily to support the visual aspect of the screen. So they're using it to amplify their access to the screen because they're both taking in the visual component and the auditory component. So don't discount this before you try it. The other thing I would warn you about a screen reader, any screen reader, when you turn a screen reader on, it inherently changes the way your device works. Typically, our touch devices, I see something I want on the screen, I touch it and it does it. Great. When you're using a screen reader, I touch it, it announces what I've touched. That's all it does. It didn't do anything else except announce it. Then I touch it again to access it. So there is this step, this intermediary step of the first touch is simply the announcement of that. And then I access those features. So that's a little different. When people turn on a screen reader, sometimes that throws them off because their device is not working the same way they thought it would. So they have to remember that there is a different aspect to how this works now. And that's the announcement piece of that. Oh, sorry, I jumped over it. Android has, for quite a while, had live captions built into it. This idea of any audio that's playing from my device, I can turn on the live captions and I will get auto-generated text overlaid on whatever app I'm in that is producing audio. So we're seeing this more and more, that live captions are being embedded into most of the tools we have. Your Android devices are no exception. They do it very well. Gives you that live aspect of text available for any audio that you have coming out of the screen. Switch access, if someone needs alternate access, switch access is there. You have to have an Android device that runs Android version 5 or higher. And I believe they're probably up to about 13 or 14 now in our version of Androids. Most of your devices will have version 5 or higher. I have to admit, there's some, when I talk about those inexpensive Android devices, there are some that run a version of Android lower than 5, so you wouldn't have this access. So do keep that in mind. There are some functionality pieces to switch access that are very good in your Android. Auto scanning through choices on the screen, providing combinations, or basically assigning different keystrokes to perform actions. Those are really good. So that gives you that ability to provide functionality quicker for someone, so they get that the speed aspect, especially someone with an alternate access. If it takes a while to access my point that controls my device, a switch, whatever it might be, I want to maximize that hit to do as much as possible. So thinking about that ability to create those combinations. As with your iDevices, on your Android devices, you still have a situation where you need an interface between the phone and the switch. So if you're looking at alternate access, and on the top right of this picture, I have all those different kinds of switches. So it could be any one of those or a combination of those that you might be using. They may be mounted in some way, like the picture on the bottom. However you're going to do it, the switch is the alternate access. The switch does not plug directly into the device unless that switch is Bluetooth. Now, if that's a Bluetooth switch, that's different. In that picture there with all the different switches, the very bottom one with the 2 pads on it, that's a Bluetooth switch that can connect directly into your devices. But if you have a switch with a physical wire attached to it, please, if you take nothing from this webinar, don't plug a switch into your device. It won't work. I don't know where you found a plug that you tried to fit it in there, but that's not what it's meant for. Don't do that. So your switches need to go into something. That something might be an interface like the piece in the middle there, that little Tekla, what's called the Tekla E. That's the model number. It looks like a hockey puck, like a little disc, and you plug switches into it, and then that device interfaces with your tablet or your smartphone to allow those switch clicks to come across. Remember, think about switch access. Questions you need to ask is, what am I looking to get controlled? What do I want this switch to control? Is it apps? Is it the functionality of the device? Is it both? You have to make sure that the apps you are using are enabled for switch access. So that might take a little bit of trial and error to figure out. If you have a lending center around you, I would encourage you maybe borrow a setup of an Android tablet with some switches and see if the apps you're thinking about controlling will work with switch access. That's not all the features. There are more. There's magnification. There's other functionalities that you can find in your accessibility. But I wanted to touch base with you on a couple of these bonus apps. These are Google apps that give us accessibility. However, they're not pre-installed on our devices. Now, you may get lucky and some of them may be installed on a device, but you might not. So as long as you're running the right version of Android, and you can see that in the App Store when you go to download them, or do you have the right version of Android, this gives you extra functionality. So these are Google apps, no cost. Here's 3 different tools. I've given you the QR code if you want to go scan and download them right away. First, you have voice access, which we started to see part of this when we were looking at the voiceover function on TalkBack. That had some functionality with your voice there. This would be just the voice access piece of that. So controlling the device by your voice. So giving the device commands to move around apps, to move within apps, to move around the device itself. So that functionality there of giving you full voice control over different aspects of your tool. So that's one, voice access. Check that out. You can download that there. It'll load that app. Again, these are Android apps created by Google. So there's no cost for these just increasing your functionality of your built-in accessibility. The second one we'll talk about is this is the reason I bought an Android tablet because I love this app. This app is great. If you've never heard of it, it's called Action Blocks. There's the QR code. It'll take you there. My excitement enough should be enough to get you to install it, but I'll tell you what it does. It allows you to add clickable icons to your front screen. The screen right there is the smartphone for my dad. He does very little with a smartphone except call me and my sister. Those are the two big things he does. There are our pictures. We live on the front screen. All our glory there, living on the front screen. He simply has to tap that, and the device will go through the steps to dial our phone number for him. He doesn't have to pull up the phone. He doesn't have to find us in a list. He just simply clicks one of those buttons and calls us. So you have that clickable functionality there that allows you to do things like call people, control the environment. There are ways you can add in boxes there to control lights and the TV and radio and things like that. You can launch apps like your phone. There's also some function there where I can create a simple AAC device. So here's the screen of that working on my tablet there. That layout on the left-hand side is Action Blocks, and it allowed me to create an entire screen of AAC icons, where now my device can speak for me. I can simply scroll from my main screen to my second screen there. So as you're scrolling through the choices of your home screen there, that's its own page. And all of that is AAC. I'll give you an example of what Action Blocks looks like, and we'll kind of see it as it runs. So then you're in an edit view. So here I'm in the screen. That's the screen you're seeing on the left. That's the editing view of it. I can go into any of those squares, edit them. I control what it does when I click the box. This one says yes. It has an image there. That's the image I chose. You could put any other image there. You're telling it what you want it to do. As you scroll through, I can choose some voices that it will speak in.
Yes.
So you hear it saying yes, that's what it sounds like. I can create a new block. Here's some of the things an Action Block can do. Make a phone call, start a video call, send a text message, play video, play music, create a custom action. And then there's even more actions underneath. And that's where we see things like set an alarm, create a reminder, open an app, open my calendar, get directions. It can do environmental controls as I scroll down. Set the temperature, turn on the lights, turn off the lights. All of that functionality within my home screen to do any number of those items. So now you have some extension of the usability of your tool, especially for someone who we may be working with, that the depth of function on a smartphone or tablet might be too much for them, might not be necessary. They might not need access to all these things, but need access to a couple things quickly. Then we can give them that setup. We can adjust that on the screen. I could make another screen. So where I have a home screen with apps on it, I could have that as a second screen with an AAC. I could have a third screen that controls lights and TVs and music. So it's like my home automation screen. And so really nice functionality. Action Blocks does not exist for iOS devices. If there's one moment where Android devices get their little chance at the summit here, this is it, Action Blocks, because I can't get this on an iOS device. But this in itself, incredibly functional, incredibly powerful, a great use of customization for whatever the person you're working with is looking to do on their device. So I can't talk about it enough. I mean, I could keep talking about it, but I'm not gonna. But it's pretty great. So check that out, download that. There's the QR code to get to it. Put it on your device, Action Blocks. The third one I want to show you is called Lookout. This is an app that takes over the functionality of your camera to allow you to announce things in your environment. And so I can use the camera. I can point it at text. It will read the text out loud. I can point it at an item in the environment. It will announce to me what that is. I can take a picture of currency. It'll tell me how much it is. I can do a barcode on an item. It will read out what that item is to me. So it allows you to get audio support for visual aspects of your environment. If you've seen the app Seeing AI from Microsoft, it's the same functionality. This is Google's version that goes in Android called Lookout. And again, depending on your device, this might already be in your phone or tablet because these might be preloaded by the manufacturers as they set your device up. So you might have it already. You might have to go out and get it. All three of these apps are free. You can get to them and they will work on your Android devices and add that functionality, that accessibility functionality. All right. So as we wrap this guy up, in your Android devices, I'm curious how many of us use Android devices. I don't think a lot of people beyond phones use Android devices or think of that or consider that when they're considering devices they might employ in a classroom. Like I said before, a really nice option. The tablet that I kept showing you in those pictures of my own tablet, it's a really nice Samsung tablet. I don't think it was even $100. Might have snuck in right at $99. So a nice opportunity to get fairly powerful systems for people to use and not have to spend a lot of money like we might see with iPads, things like that. Not to take a shot at an iPad, but we all know that an iPad's, kind of expensive in relation to some of these other tools. So the other thing too is, as I know we're talking about education now, I also work a lot with transition age students and even adults in the community. You'd be surprised at how many people have Android devices as their main smartphone. So we do need to have this conversation. We do need to be aware of the supports that are out there for people. But right now, I'll leave you with this thought as you wrap up here and think about Android devices and built-in accessibility. How could you use this? Who could you share this information with? And what else would you need in your environment to support someone with these devices? So it's the same reflection I gave for the iOS webinar. So if you haven't seen that one yet, you're going to see this slide just going to be in a different color. Because I think the reflection is the same. It's really important. There's almost no easier way to expand someone's knowledge of flexibility and inclusive technology than showing them built-in accessibility features. It resonates with people. They already have it. They just have to start using it. It's not about getting something else. It's not even sometimes about learning something else. It's about turning something on a device you're very comfortable with already, your own phone in most cases, turning that on and using it to make a more customized experience for you with technology. So that's where I like to start with technology with people because it's an easy jumping in point for some people. I hope that helped you. I hope that gave you some information about how to go and make these tools work for you and the people you're working with. If you want to connect, I would love to connect. Here's every single way you could connect with me. There's my email address. If you have questions or thoughts about this after you watch it, reach out. Happy to talk with you about it. My website, every social media channel that I'm on, you can find me on there. I'd love to talk to you and learn more about what you're doing with technology and help you be better at meeting people's needs with technology as you go forward and become better at that. So again, thanks for watching. I hope this was valuable, and I hope to see you in one of the other webinars. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us. Are you a New Jersey educator looking for support or professional development tailored to your district's AT needs? We offer free, customized training and coaching for NJ teachers, paraprofessionals, and families. From hands-on workshops to individual classroom support and small group facilitation, We're here to help. Visit us at atcenter.tcnj.edu to learn more. Have a question? Contact us at atcenter@tcnj.edu. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content on all things assistive technology.